welcome back to my channel. I'm Leslie, and if you're wondering, yes, this is the same shirt as the last video. I decided to make 2 videos. Maybe I'll make another one. Maybe I'll make more. I don't know. Anyway, so I decided to make the second video because there's just a lot of things on my mind, I guess. And I realized there's a lot of things that a lot of people might not know. One of the things was that I had mentioned that I have bipolar 2. And there's a bipolar 1 and a bipolar 2. Bipolar 1 is where the person typically has more upswings, more manic episodes, and they're usually more intense, like heavy drug use, sexual activity, getting put in jail, getting put in the hospital because you can go weeks without sleep. And there are the depressed moods, but they're not as strong, and they are also not as frequent. Bipolar 2 is the opposite of that in a way. It is much more intense lows, and it's so hard to put into words. The darkness, the depression, and it's for longer periods, and it's more intense, and I also do experience some manic episodes. I typically just experience a lot of highs and lows. My manic is I get talking really rapid, and I get giggly and giddy and goofier than I already am. And how else does it feel? I'm over talkative. Like, I share way more than I should, or maybe more than I think I should. I go home at night a lot of times and I think, should I have said that? Oh my gosh, should I have said that? I don't even know sometimes, man. And then I'm like, man, I shouldn't have said that. Why did I say that? Like, you know. Anyway, so that's bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. But it's not just this set, like, oh, you're bipolar 1 and this is what it's going to be like. No, it's different for every single person. No 2 cases of bipolar are the same. They may have similarities in certain aspects, but they're not ever going to be the same. And that's what makes treating it so difficult. And I am not a professional by far. I am going 100% based off of my own personal experience, things that I have learned, so that I could help other people understand the different aspects of bipolar. But there's also, I guess, different spectrums, because it is a spectrum. So, there's in-betweens, and it can be difficult to diagnose too. So, I mean, there's so many different mental health, like, I guess, mental illnesses, and with bipolar, because I also do have ADHD, which, I mean, is it just because I have ADHD, or is it because that bipolar causes people to have ADHD? And I'm not really sure. But, you know, other little things like that. With me, the reason it took so long to get diagnosed as bipolar was because I was first diagnosed with depression when, gosh, I want to say it was in 9th grade. I was definitely feeling it in 8th, but it got a lot worse and darker in 9th grade. And so that was when I got on medication, and I always have to, like, do this horrible backtracking to figure out how old I was in 9th grade, so I'm not going to do it. So if you want to do the math, awesome, because I don't. So I was diagnosed with bipolar when I was in college, and they say that you usually get diagnosed when there is a stressful event. And I'd say that going to college was a stressful event. And I sit there and I try to think back. You know, when was I manic in college? And I guess the spending, I definitely spent a lot of money. Like, I was working part-time on campus as the cook's assistant, which was cool and fun. But it's really hard to think of my past. It makes me anxious. I'm shaking my leg right now. It's very hard to focus on it. Okay, so back to when I was diagnosed. What I remember is probably that night. I ended up going to Pine Rest up in Grand Rapids, and I was pretty bad at that point. They admitted me for a week, and I left with the diagnosis of being bipolar. And I don't know, like, I have such a hard time remembering. A lot of it was just dark. The reason, okay, first, let me say I need to put a disclaimer here. I just lost my chapstick, and I have a chapstick problem. Anyway, I'm going to add a disclaimer here that what I'm about to talk about is very sensitive and may be bothersome for some people. So if you don't want to hear me talk about some really dark stuff, if it's a trigger for you or you find it upsetting, I will leave a notation up at the top telling you where to jump to, and you can proceed. Anyway, I remember the night that I went to Pine Rest. I don't remember a whole lot before. I base a lot of my stuff off of pictures. But I remember I was talking with a friend, and she reached out to me. There had been a community gathering of the girls' dorm, and I had attended it, but I had absolutely no interest. And I honestly don't even know why I attended it, but lack of participation, I guess, tipped my friend off, and she messaged me, and I was in a pretty dark place at that point. I was starting to make a plan. Okay, what can I use? What can I use that's sharp enough to slit my wrists? I'd gotten to the point where I had decided I had plenty of CDs. If you break a CD, it gets sharp. And I hadn't really gotten to that point, I think, of finding out when it was going to happen. But really, I don't think it mattered at that time. So she reached out, and her and the RN of our hallway came to me, and long story short, I ended up in Pine Rest. And I don't remember any of the manic. I honestly don't know how they got to that conclusion or that diagnosis. But now, having, lived 32 years of life, yeah, I understand. But, so, that was my experience being diagnosed with bipolar, and the difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. And keep in mind that it is not the same. So the story that I share with you of how I feel, how I think things, how powerful my emotions are, is completely special to me. And I think that's kind of why I want to do this and reach out to people, because it is hard when you feel like absolutely nobody understands you. Even other people who have bipolar, it means a lot to me, and it makes a difference in my life knowing people who have bipolar and who also have mental illness, whether it be depression or, you know, some other mental illness that shares similarities with bipolar. Yes, it makes me feel less alone. But I still feel alone all the time. Because no single person in this world can really understand what it's like to experience my bipolar. So, yeah. I mean, that pretty much is it. I guess I'll end the video. I can make another one if I want about something else, right? Alright, well, thanks for watching, and I really honestly don't know what to say at the end of a video, so I guess you'll see me when I make another one. Bye.